that leads us into our next topic, which is recently, I believe that this was within the week as well too. Luke Walton was fired from his job from being the Sacramento Kings head coach. He was heading into his third season. After starting the season 5-4, it looked like the Kings were heading in the right direction, and they went on to lose, I believe, 5 of the next 6, and they just have not looked good since then. And because of that, ownership decided it's time to pull the plug on him, and it's led to other parts or other executives in the league to question why was this decision not made in the offseason rather than go in 16 games, 17 games in and pull him. So first, Brian, what do you think about the firing, and then we could go from there.
So the firing, like we talked about in the past, definitely just due. This man should have been fired a long time ago. What I have heard, I'm not exactly sure if it's 100% positive or correct, is that the Kings did not actually want to fire Luke Walton because they didn't want to be paying 2 coaches at once. So if they fire him, they're still going to have to pay Luke Walton, and they did not want to do that. But it just seems like so far the season's not going their way. It's still a mess. Might as well just do it now rather than later. Now, Marvin Bagley probably over there dancing. We've talked about Marvin Bagley a million times, and his struggles with minutes and all that. I'm sure he still wants to trade, but it's Luke Walton definitely was his time. He actually has a record in his 2 seasons and a little bit plus. His record is 68-93. And what I actually did find interesting was that over 18 coaches since Luke Walton's been hired, Luke Walton is actually the second highest winning percentage for Sacramento coaches. So he has a 42% winning percentage throughout his tenure of the team, and he's the second highest winning percentage as a coach out of 18 coaches since the franchise moved to California in 1985. That is just mind-blowing. So Luke Walton, definitely a problem, but it seems like Sacramento has some bigger problems going on.
There's definitely a lot of fish to fry in this situation, and you kind of have to go all the way upstairs in the front office and start asking questions what's happening there that's causing for them to be perpetually going through these type of situations. Early on in our podcasting career, we spoke about the Pelicans and how upstairs is the problem rather than what's happening on the court. I'm a firm believer that a lot of the decisions that are made in the front court that happen on the court is a residual effect of decisions that are being made in the front office. So with that in mind, since our owner, Vivek Adanaviv, became owner in like 2013, I believe Shaq had a little stake in that during that time as well. He's been very adamant about wanting to build a playoff winning team. The Bleacher put out a report just doing like a little bit into the insides of what's going on with this situation, where Jake Fisher wrote this report going in depth about the whole firing, and then just giving us an insight into what's really going on for the Kings organization and why they are perpetually always bottom dwellers. And it's glaring to see that no matter if you change the general manager, which was Vlade Divac for some time before they switched their general managers last year, you're still seeing the same issues. And I was watching earlier this week also as they introduced Alvin Gentry into the head coaching role. They started to ask, what is he going to do to change the culture and change the fact that they haven't had a winning season in over 15 years. And Alvin Gentry, I think, answered it in the best way possible. It's not fair to put that on the players that are currently on that team, and it's not fair on to weigh that over him as well, because we've only been here potentially most of the people that are part of the organization at this point have only been here for 2 to 3 years. So we really cannot be at fault for this. The thing is also that he mentioned is for you to think that I'm going to come into this seat and ultimately immediately it's going to turn into a different culture is not fair as well. And I think he was right on the money when he was saying that. It's about collectively and slowly working yourself into a point where you're getting into now we're getting respectable. Now we're a more respected franchise. Now we could consider how we're going to win, which ways we want to win, and which type of players we want to put in. But first they have to get off the bottom floor and get to being a respectable organization. At this point, they're not, and people treat them as that.
Yeah, it's just they have such a history of losing, and I completely agree. Just like what you mentioned about the top level is the biggest point right now, because like those people need to get fixed before anything else gets fixed. Because I just went through this as a Knicks fan of seeing when your management has no idea what they're doing. Doesn't matter who you sign, doesn't really matter what players you get. They're just gonna make bad decisions always going forward, which is just gonna hinder the team. If your front office isn't making smart decisions, your team is just not gonna progress the way that they need to. So I love that Alvin Gentry is kind of setting the expectations appropriately and where they need to be, which is low, because this is gonna take a lot of time for this team. This team actually has some solid young pieces. They have Buddy Hield. They have Rashawn Holmes, who they signed to a really good contract. Buddy Hield, which is probably a pretty good trade chip that they have. You have Davion Mitchell. You have blanking on the player that they had from last season, the rookie Tyrese Halliburton. Like they have like some legit talent over there. Potentially Marvin Bagley, whatever they do with him. It's just that as of right now, things are not going as they're supposed to. So, I mean, is Alvin Gentry the guy? I mean, looking at his history over his career as a head coach, his record is 510 and 595. So also not a winning coach. And he's been fired from plenty of jobs, and he was actually the coach of the Pelicans from 2015 to 2020. So this guy actually has a lot of experience. He could potentially, start moving this team in the correct direction. I mean, they just got a win over Portland, who's also been kind of middle of the road so far, but it's at least they're finally doing something to move in the right direction. Is this
Yep.
is this what they 100% need? Is Alvin Gentry going to be their head coach for the next 5 years? No. Are most of these players going to be here over the next 5 years? Probably not. But, it's all about just making that little progression little by little, and we'll see how they do.
And then another interesting thing that I saw from that interview when they brought in Alvin Gentry, this is about the third or fourth time that Alvin Gentry has had to take over after losing the head coach midway through the season. And he was asked that question as well. And he seemed as if he was mentioning that it's not a good field to have that, obviously.
Yeah.
But he's here to support the Kings and make sure that they get to where they need to be. But like I said, and much like you were mentioning as well, it's about removing those malignant forces first, and then once you're purified of all of that, you can now start thinking about how we can improve this team, because nothing's going to happen if you still have the same forces that were making bad decisions previously currently still making decisions, because it's easy to get rid of Vladdy Divac, but if you still have the same VP of basketball operations that's still making bad decisions up top, it's not going to matter.
Yeah, I find that pretty funny that Alvin Gentry, this is not his first time have taking over a head coaching position like this. And I mean, if anything, he's actually probably one of the better people to actually take over the job because he has that experience, and I'm sure he's done things that he regrets in the past, and I'm sure he's learned from them and what he could implement this time around. So that's definitely nice. It's not like a guy doing this for the first time and just kind of going in blind. What I did kind of find interesting of like how bad the Sacramento Kings have actually been so far. They were 16th in offense, so middle of the road offense. And as we see, like they have some decent players. They need more, but not actually terrible there. Where they were terrible though, they were ranked 24th in defense, and that's where it is of like we saw before in the past with other teams. It's a lot of effort and it's a lot of buying into the coaching, and so that's something that can change when you have a culture change. Offense not too far off, change a few things, get some new players in there. So they're not in the grimmest of positions, but we'll see how they do. Definitely a good step getting rid of Luke Walton.
Exactly. And then another thing to add, and this is another clear upstairs issue that I'm having, is that as we're having this conversation, I'm remembering all of these things bubble up to the surface. Is I remember that there was reports that the owner's son, who does not have a background in the NBA, was trying to influence decision making on the team as well. You look at like even the firing of Vladdy Divac. Vladdy Divac signed an extension a year before that. So why would you sign?
Yeah.
Why would you provide him with an extension if you were going to fire him less than a year? So you got to have, when you see those type of things happening, it becomes things that you could circle in and realize, like to pinpoint where's the true issue happening here. Obviously, you can't fire your owner, but you're gonna have to find a way to. And trust me, we've seen that with the Knicks. They've tried. Their fans have tried to fire their owner, but you're gonna have to find a way where they have a clear chain of command and like decision making powers really is given to the people that should be making basketball decisions on this team.
That is so concerning that he gives that position and his son is trying to make decisions on the team. That is not the person you want to do. That is not how you run an organization. That is just not the things that you're supposed to do. And like you mentioned, you see with the Knicks, James Dolan comes in every once in a while now and tries to make a decision, and it goes terribly wrong. You pay your front office so much money so they can make the correct decision. Why would you ever have your son try to make decisions for the team? That is so bad. I feel I really feel sorry for Kings fans. Hopefully, the owner wises up and realizes I should not be muddling or meddling into what actually happens with the team, or at least having more discussions with his front office and letting them do their job. So that's crazy news. Wow.